hardly anyone talks about, but you really need to think about. And I think you don't realize until you leave, that's probably the most important thing. Leaving medical school was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but for me personally, it was also one of the best personal decisions I've ever made. I started medical school in 2012 when I went to Liverpool Medical School, and I left after graduation in 2017. And that was a really awkward time to leave. Most people usually either leave in medical school or after foundation training. But in my 5th year, I decided to explore different options, and hence I left after graduation. The thing that struck me the most at the time when I was trying to decide whether to leave or not was the lack of information. I basically couldn't get any good information from my medical school, my colleagues, my friends, my family, and at the time even the internet wasn't a good place to search. So I had to navigate the journey by myself, and I learned a lot of things that I would like to share with you now. There are some things that I really think you should consider before you decide whether or not you want to leave. And these thoughts are based on my experience in the past 6 years having left medicine. So the first thing to consider is, can you wait until you have the degree before you leave medical school? By my 3rd year of med school, I was already really considering leaving, but thanks to my sister, she basically convinced me to just stay until I had the medical degree because she knew how powerful that would be. And she was absolutely right. Having that medical degree has served me so much later on in life and in my career. So if you're in your 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, whatever, and you want to call it quits, do you have it in you to just get there and get the degree and then call it quits? Because that was a really powerful move for me. But I understand that's not always an option for everyone, but it is something to consider. At the end of the day, you don't have to wait. If you choose a different path, just go down that path. You're hardworking, you're intelligent, you have a plethora of skills that you can use. Medicine and your medical degree is not the be-all and end-all of your life. You will get through it, and you very likely will be successful in what you do next. The second point ties into that quite nicely, and it's basically, can you set yourself up to come back later on if you change your mind? So for me personally, one of the reasons I wanted to get the medical degree is to make sure that I could come back if I then changed my mind later on. You and I both know how hard it is to just get into medical school in the first place, and sometimes people just need a break rather than quitting the whole career. So if you're feeling kind of unsure whether it's the right decision or not, then having as many safeguards in place as possible can really help you. So for me, I made sure that I had the medical degree and I knew what steps to take afterwards if I wanted to come back and do F1 and F2. So for me, it was enough to have the safeguard of a medical degree. I knew what I needed to do afterwards if I wanted to go back into foundation training, and that made me feel a lot more secure in my decision to explore other options. Again, that's not exactly something that is 100% needed. It's just to say that if you're feeling very unsure about your decision, can you buffer it some way, somehow, to make it easier for you to make that decision? But it's not something that should stop you if you are really struggling and you want to leave. So if you never go back, so be it. If you really want to go back, you will find a way. The third thing that hardly anyone talks about, but you really need to think about is, are you ready to leave behind your identity as a medical student or doctor? Being a medical student and being a doctor is held really highly in society. Are you ready for people to look at you differently and not hold you in as high of a regard as they used to? Because we all have an ego, and that is a big part that plays into it. And I think you don't realize until you leave how much of your identity is tied to being a medical student or a doctor. So removing that identity from the equation will impact how people see you and sometimes how people will treat you. It's actually a really good exercise in personal growth, because you'll come to realize that it really does not matter what the hell other people think of you or what the hell other people say about you. The next thing to consider is, do you have something else to do directly after you leave medicine? And you may be thinking, oh man, I just really need to take a break. I am tired as hell. And that's totally valid and fair. But don't underestimate how difficult it is to go from 100 to 0. My biggest piece of advice to you is have something ready to go for when you leave. Whether that's changing to a different course, going traveling, starting work, whatever it is, just have something in place ready for you to do when you leave. You're going to go from working your butt off every single day to having absolutely nothing to do. So it's essential that you have some sense of direction at that time. For me personally, it helped me so much to have something ready to go after I decided to leave. But again, not the be all and end all of your decision making. thing. Taking a break to think things through is not a bad thing. Sometimes you just need that headspace to make clearer decisions. Or you might just need new experiences to help guide you on your journey. So yes, it's good to have a plan, but if you don't have one, and again, you are really struggling, then don't let that stop you. The next point, which ties in quite nicely to that, is are you ready to be very bad at something new? And this one's also harder than you think, because as a medical student or a doctor, you are probably a natural born high achiever. So being absolutely crap at something is not something that you look forward to, but it's an essential part of the journey, because whatever you do next, you're going to probably be very new at. You will eventually, of course, get better at it, just like with anything, even like with medicine. No one starts anything by being absolutely brilliant at it. You will learn just like you've learned every other thing in your life so far. And it's fun. It's fun to learn new things. And no one will expect you to be good at what you're doing next. It's just that internalized pressure that you might feel. The next point plays off of that, and it's essentially, are you ready to potentially jump from career to career for many years to come? And the reason I want to talk about this is because when you go into medical school, you basically know what your career is going to look like for the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life. Yes, you might not know your speciality and smaller, finer details like that, but you know you're going to be a doctor. But when you try something new, you might absolutely hate it, and you might want to try another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. And you may end up switching careers multiple times throughout the years. So you have to become a bit of an explorer for your career. And that's something that could either scare you or it could excite you. For me personally, I love that. I think it's one of the things that makes life worth living. And with that notion of having to change careers multiple times and potentially not knowing what you're going to be doing in 5, 10, 20 years from now, is are you also ready for career and potentially financial instability? You may never again have a job as secure as being a doctor. And that's something that you should think about, because some people will hate that. Some people don't mind it. Like me, I don't mind it. But that's also because I have so much support around me, both financial and emotional and psychological. So if you're not as well supported, then you might be less tolerant to instability. That's not to say that you should stay in that career just for that reason, but it's just something that you should be prepared for. Even within medicine, there is instability. And learning how to deal with instability is not necessarily a bad thing. It just equips you with more skills that you can use in life and helps you navigate life a bit better. Another important point to mention that no one really likes to talk about is, are you prepared for the emotional turmoil of not doing a career that's considered the most selfless or the most altruistic career there is out there? People not only hold doctors in high regard because of their intelligence and their work ethic, but also because the job is a very selfless job, particularly in the UK. So are you ready internally to accept the fact that you will no longer be doing a job like that? Because I think people underestimate how difficult it is to tell yourself it's okay that I'm not doing this job anymore, and to truly internalize that it's not the only job in the world that can help people. It took me many years to reconcile that just within myself internally. I know now that there are millions of other things I can do to truly make a difference in people's lives. And some things you do might even have a much larger impact than helping individual patients day to day. That's not to take away from the amazing work of doctors, because it truly is amazing and selfless in many ways. It's just to say that there are definitely other things that you can do to help improve people's lives. Being a doctor is not the only way. So I hope this video was useful in some ways. If you guys have any questions about the process of leaving medical school, then please leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. I wish you the best of luck with your decision. I know it's a really tough one. I've been there. I know that you must be really going through it right now. So I just want to send you a lot of love and say that you will make it through one way or another. I hope to see you soon, and I really hope to hear from you. Bye!